selling weapons to whatever country. I know the country, but in other words, they were doing work for the joint under the table all these years.
Okay, and directly under whose instructions to sell these weapons? Do you know that?
Yeah.
Okay, who would that be?
Well, it's the Israeli Zionist group in New York.
Mossad.
Well, yeah, but everybody thinks Mossad, like they think CIA is just a bogus sort of thing. It's really Army intelligence. It does just about everything. They run a lot of the psychological profiling, which is done at Quantico with the FBI. It's all a very small group. Harvard professors connected with, the Tavistock and Dar es Salaam, and there's a sexual perversion group in Vienna and one in Colorado. I think that little girl was part of that experiment, who was
John Benet Ramsey?
Yeah, because I had some...
Well, that raises an interesting point, because here's a high-profile murder that goes nowhere. No investigation, nobody's pinned. It just goes on and on and on.
The parents are involved in that program.
But somebody higher up is protecting them.
Absolutely.
And the same thing that you're describing about the military.
Sure.
If you're in the clique, you can get away with murder.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Murder, literally murder. And I had a group of visitors. I used to be set up by the State Department, my husband, who had power in the State Department, through both Caspar Weinberger and, his whole crowd. Caspar Weinberger, George Bush, Colby, Casey. My husband was in that clique. He was in the Princeton Marine Corps clique. Rob, Warner,
You're talking Senator Rob.
Yeah, they're all Marines. Pat Robertson, all 4th Marines. They're all involved in this. They know they're running everything.
Now you mentioned Pat Robertson. You're talking about the 700 Club, Pat Robertson.
Yeah, there's a power thing there, and it's all male, it's all white, and they know the murders are going on. They're surgical, they're strategic, they're political. But what I was going to tell you is, I was used because I was the most gullible in high school. And I'm very, very spiritual, and I love people. So, and I was driven to meet all these people from all over the world for some reason. So they would feed me people because they knew I would react. It's kind of like Monica and Bill. I think they put Monica in there to have something on Bill. That's my own feeling. Sarah McClendon feels the same way. Because...
And Linda Tripp was there to guide the situation.
Absolutely. Of course. Linda Tripp was Delta Force. Linda Tripp was trained by Carl Steiner, who's in the diary with my husband. Carl Steiner is called a snake. And he tried to trip up Schwarzkopf. He was trying to take the whole Iraqi thing over, because they had been baiting, using the Israeli rogues in Turkey. They were having little zigzag wars. It's all to sell weapons. It's all about weapon sales. It's all about drugs. It's all about funny money.
Making money.
Of course. And the head, Krulak, who is the Commandant of the Marine Corps, his father, Victor Krulak, worked with this Russian, Czechoslovakian double agent who was worked with Al Gray, who was enlisted at that time, rose right up to the top because they were involved with Butcher and this whole crowd that was trying to pick fights. And they were not, they were Army and Navy together, joint. And George kept saying, George calls them the members of the firm. He calls them the members of the firm. I've heard the brotherhood. They're very close. And it's a small group, and it's very hierarchical. I had Caspar Weinberger's bodyguard farm me when I was at Sarah McClendon's.
Now, farm you.
Yeah, that's a term that they use.
And where they cultivate?
They well, not cultivate, but just want to find out kind of. They're doing profiling on me. Women are hard to profile because we're very easy. We're very easy if you understand women. And I think they need more women in human intelligence because we solve a lot of these problems like overpopulation or whatever it is very quickly. Because we're the ones who teach the men how to talk, how to communicate. We think on 20 levels at once. You know, we're very spiritual, we're very practical, all at the same time. And they make mistakes by pegging women as crazy when really they're very anxious to solve problems. They're just very frustrated to see a lot of wacko things going on that don't need to be going on, but the guys don't see it. So with my husband and so forth, I was used, they profiled me. They knew I loved international people because I'd already demonstrated that. And there was a group of sexual psychiatrists from Vienna who came over. I had pictures of them. I was their escort. George was already gone, and I was intrigued that they were still sending me people.
Okay, now you referred to them as sexual psychologists?
Yeah, there's a whole range of psychiatrists who study perversion, sexual perversion. Harvard, Yale, Johns Hopkins, and this Colorado group. Dar es Salaam, where they train the black African terrorists. They train them in interrogation. They train the JAGs in interrogation methods and so forth. And a lot of these guys got their experience in Vietnam. Intentionally, they took these little boys. That's what they're doing in Bosnia right now. They're training future leaders in perversion. They have a school. The British have a school that George was working with in Indonesia for a year. My husband was setting up there was already a program on East Timor, a little place there in the mountains, that had been set up by the Australians during World War II. It was involved, I think, with Burma and, you know, some of the killings that were going on in China and so forth. That T. Parker Host, this man who now controls my husband with Bob Edwards. T. Parker Host, this is how they got together. T. Parker Host, I knew when I was the assistant director of the Virginia Center for World Trade. I was the first woman on the board of the Foreign Commerce Club. I was very involved politically, and I was having a ball. And I met T. Parker Host through someone else. I was the chairman of a board of all these international shippers and brokers. I was just a, sort of a glorified secretary, public relations person. Now, T. Parker Host was the Finnish consul and at one time he'd been the Norwegian consul, the Icelandic consul. I thought he was a really nice guy because he was outgoing, he seemed Virginian. I didn't know that much about him. But it turns out he has one shipping agency when I meet him in '85. He knows my husband's profession instantly because he brags about being with the mob. See, the mob runs the port of Norfolk. I mean, it's terrible to say, the bankers, and then they have the, this is not, I can't say that.
You can't say what?
No. The ports are run by, it's a homosexual hierarchy.
Okay, that's not objection.
Well, okay. And in Norfolk, it's Walter Chrysler, Phil Hornthal. You know, they have the rich ones, and then they get the little ones in by introducing them to the big guys. It's like George met Einstein. Einstein was in that little ring that the Saudis were in. It was a very elite.
No, you're saying Einstein?
Albert Einstein
Okay.
was in that little Princeton ring before he died.